Being right doesn't protect you from grief. Doesn't stop you from lying awake wondering if there was a path where everyone ended up okay. Posted to r/relationship_advice. I, 27F, am a nurse. 2 weeks ago, I married the love of my life. It should have been the happiest time of my existence. Instead, I'm sitting here at 2 a.m., scrolling through wedding photos I can barely look at, wondering if I destroyed a family I'd only just become part of. My phone rang 14 days before the wedding. I was at work, finishing a 12-hour shift in the ICU, and I almost didn't answer. The number was my future sister-in-law's. We weren't exactly on speaking terms at that point, but something made me step into the break room and pick up. She was screaming. Not angry screaming, broken screaming. The kind of sound that comes from somewhere deep and raw, the kind I've heard from patients' families when I have to deliver news no one wants to hear. "You ruined everything," she kept saying. "You ruined my life. Are you happy now? Are you finally happy?" I didn't understand at first. My mind was still half in work mode, still thinking about the patient in room for whose vitals had been unstable all night. It took me a full 30 seconds to process what she was telling me through her sobs. Her fiancé had called off the wedding 2 weeks before the ceremony. After the venue was booked, the dress was altered, the invitations were sent. He'd packed a bag, left their apartment, and told her he couldn't marry someone he didn't recognize anymore. And she blamed me. Update 1. How we got here, 8 months earlier. To understand what happened, I need to take you back to February. My fiancé and I had been together for 4 years. We met in the most unromantic way possible. I was his nurse when he came in with a broken collarbone from a cycling accident. He asked for my number while still on pain medication, and I laughed and told him to ask again when he was sober. He showed up at the hospital 3 days later with coffee and a slightly embarrassed smile, and asked again. I said yes. 4 years later, on a cold February evening, he proposed on the beach where we'd had our first real date. It was perfect. We were both crying. I said yes before he even finished asking. We set the date for October 15th. It gave us 8 months to plan, which felt comfortable. We booked a venue almost immediately, a restored barn outside the city that we both fell in love with. Put down a deposit. Started building a guest list. Everything felt right. 2 weeks after our engagement, his family threw us a small celebration dinner at his parents' house. His sister was there, let's call her the sister-in-law, even though she wasn't yet. She'd always been polite to me, though we'd never been close. She's 3 years older than my fiancé, the firstborn, the daughter who'd always been doted on. Not in a spoiled way, exactly, but you could tell she was used to being the center of attention. That night, she seemed distracted. Quiet. She barely congratulated us, just a quick hug and a murmured, "So happy for you," that didn't quite reach her eyes. I noticed, but I didn't think much of it. 3 days later, my fiancé called me at work. "She's engaged," he said. His voice was strange, not happy, not sad, just confused. His sister had announced her own engagement. Her boyfriend of 11 months had proposed the night before, completely out of the blue. And she wanted to get married in October. October 1st. 2 weeks before my wedding. At first, I thought it was wonderful. 2 weddings in the family, both in the fall, both celebrating love. I called her to congratulate her, genuinely happy for her despite the timing. That's when things started to unravel. "We need to talk about the dates," she said, her voice already carrying an edge I didn't recognize. "October is going to be crazy for everyone. 2 weddings in 2 weeks. People will be exhausted. They'll have to choose." "I don't think they'll have to choose," I said carefully. "They're 2 weeks apart. People can attend both. But the attention will be split. The excitement will be diluted." She paused. "I think you should move your date." I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought she was joking. We already booked everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. It's all locked in. So unbook it. Push to next spring. Or next October. That's a year away. I'm his sister. Her voice hardened. "Family comes first. You can wait another year." I stood in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, and felt the first cold trickle of understanding that this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. "I'm not moving my wedding," I said quietly. "We were engaged first. We set our date first. Moving would cost us thousands in deposits we'd lose, and there's no guarantee we'd even find a new venue. So this is about money. You're putting money over family. I'm not putting anything over anyone. I'm keeping the plans we already made." She hung up. The campaign started the next day. She called her parents first. Then her aunts, her grandmother, her cousins. Within a week, half the family had been told a version of events where I was a selfish outsider who refused to accommodate family, who was stealing her wedding month, who didn't care about anyone but myself. His mother called us, voice careful and diplomatic. "Could you maybe just consider it? Just to keep the peace?" My fiancé, God, I love him for this, took the phone from me. "Mom, we were engaged first. We set our date first. We're not moving our wedding because she decided to get engaged 2 weeks later and wants the same month. That's not how this works. She's very upset, sweetheart. Then she can pick a different date. November is beautiful. So is September. So is literally any other month." But his sister didn't want any other month. She wanted October, and specifically, she wanted to be first. The firstborn. The first daughter married. It mattered to her in ways I didn't fully understand then. The family split. His father quietly sided with us, though he tried not to make waves. 2 of his aunts thought we were being reasonable. His grandmother, who I'd always gotten along with, started treating me with a coolness that hurt more than I expected. "She's always been like this," my fiancé told me one night, when I was crying in his arms after another tense family dinner. "She needs to be first at everything. Best grades. Best presents at Christmas. Now first married. But that doesn't mean we have to rearrange our lives for her. What if this ruins your relationship with your family?" He pulled back to look at me. "If my family can't understand that we planned first and she's being unreasonable, that's their problem, not ours. I'm marrying you. You're going to be my family. You come first." I held on to those words like a lifeline. Update 2. The unraveling. What happened next is something I only pieced together later, through conversations with my husband and whispered confessions from family members who felt guilty about staying silent. My sister-in-law threw herself into wedding planning with an intensity that bordered on manic. While I was carefully budgeting, researching vendors, and spacing out our purchases, she was spending. Wildly. Recklessly. She booked a venue twice the size of ours, a historic estate with manicured gardens and a price tag that made my stomach drop when I heard about it. She ordered a custom designer gown that cost more than my entire wedding dress budget. She hired a celebrity florist, a live orchestra, a wedding planner who specialized in luxury experiences. Every choice she made seemed designed to outdo whatever I was doing. If I mentioned we were having a 3-tier cake, she'd announce she was having a 7-tier sculptural masterpiece. If I said we'd hired a DJ, she was suddenly booking a 12-piece band. Her fiancé, I learned later, was becoming increasingly alarmed. They'd been together less than a year. They were still figuring out whose apartment they'd eventually move into. And suddenly she was spending money they didn't have on a wedding that seemed to be more about proving something than celebrating their relationship. "She started talking about our wedding in terms of yours," he told me months later, after everything fell apart. "It was never our special day. It was, we'll have better flowers than them, or our venue makes theirs look like a backyard party." She was planning a competition, not a marriage. He tried to talk to her. Multiple times. He suggested they scale back, focus on what really mattered, maybe push the date to give themselves more time to save money and plan thoughtfully. Every conversation ended in a fight. "She said I was just like you," he admitted. "That I didn't understand family. That I was siding with them, against her." He wasn't siding with anyone. He was just watching the woman he loved transform into someone consumed by rivalry, and he didn't know how to stop it. The tension bled into every family gathering. Easter dinner was a disaster. My sister-in-law made pointed comments about her more elegant venue every time someone asked about my plans. Mother's Day was worse. She interrupted my fiancé and me giving his mother our gift to announce that she just upgraded her flower package to something truly spectacular. I started dreading events I used to look forward to. I'd sit across from her at dinner tables, feeling her eyes on me, and wonder what I'd done wrong. I'd gotten engaged. I'd set a date. I'd refused to change it. Was that really so terrible? Some nights I'd lie awake and run through the scenario where I had agreed to move my wedding. Push to next spring. Let her have October. Would it have been so bad? But then I'd remember, the venue I loved would have been lost. The deposits, gone. The photographer I'd spent months finding would have been booked elsewhere. The guests who'd already arranged travel, taken time off work, marked their calendars, all inconvenienced because a woman I barely knew decided 2 weeks after my engagement that she deserved my month. I kept coming back to the same question. Why should I have had to? Update 3. The collapse. October 1st was supposed to be her day. I wasn't there when her fiancé ended things. I only know what I've been told, by my husband, by family members, by her fiancé himself in one brutally honest conversation weeks later. 2 weeks before the wedding, he came home from work to find her on the phone with the florist, screaming. Actually screaming, about how the centerpieces needed to be more impressive than anything her brother's girlfriend was having. Not more beautiful. Not more meaningful. More impressive. Better. Bigger. He sat down on the couch and watched her pace their apartment, this woman he'd fallen in love with, who used to laugh at his terrible jokes and cry at sad movies and tell him that all she wanted was a simple life with someone who loved her. Now she was red-faced, veins standing out in her neck, threatening to destroy a small business owner because her flower arrangements weren't ostentatious enough. When she hung up, he told her they needed to talk. What followed was a 3-hour conversation that ended with him packing a bag. "I don't recognize you anymore," he said. She told the family this part herself, though I don't think she meant to make him sound so reasonable. "The woman I proposed to wanted a small wedding on the beach. Remember? You said you didn't need anything fancy, just me and you and the people who matter. Now you're spending money we don't have, fighting with everyone around you, and I don't think it's about us anymore. It's about beating them. They started this," she said. "They set their date first just to. They got engaged first. They planned first. You're the one who decided to turn this into a competition, and I can't marry someone who sees our wedding as a battle to win." He left that night. That's when she called me, screaming through her tears that I'd ruined everything. I stood in the hospital break room, my hands shaking, trying to understand how any of this was my fault. I'd set a date. I'd kept it. I hadn't asked her to spend beyond her means. I hadn't forced her to book a bigger venue or hire a celebrity florist or turn every conversation into a comparison. I hadn't asked her to neglect her relationship in favor of outdoing mine. "I'm so sorry," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, despite the months of hostility and the passive-aggressive comments and the family members who'd stopped speaking to me, I was genuinely sorry her heart was broken. "This wasn't what I wanted." "Then you should have moved your wedding." Her voice was ice. "You could have given me this. You could have let me have something for once in my life, but you were too selfish. And now everything is ruined. I hope you're happy." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the break room for a long time, staring at my phone, feeling something heavy settle in my chest that hasn't fully lifted since. Update 4. The wedding that was. My wedding was beautiful. Everything went exactly as we'd planned. The October weather was perfect, crisp and golden, the trees around our venue blazing with autumn color. My dress fit perfectly. My makeup didn't run despite the tears. My father walked me down the aisle to a song we'd chosen together, and I looked at my now husband waiting for me at the altar, and for one perfect moment, everything felt right. Then I noticed the empty seats. My sister-in-law wasn't there. Neither was one of her aunts, or her grandmother, who'd told my husband's parents she couldn't support this wedding under the circumstances. My husband's cousin came but barely spoke to us, spending the reception in a corner texting. My mother-in-law smiled too much and cried too much and kept excusing herself to freshen up in ways that told me she was checking her phone, probably fielding calls from her devastated daughter. I walked through the reception in my beautiful dress, accepting congratulations from guests who didn't know about the family fractures happening beneath the surface, and I felt like a fraud. Like I was playing the role of happy bride while something ugly festered just out of sight. My wedding was beautiful. It was everything I dreamed of. And I spent half of it wondering if I'd destroyed my future family. That sentence has been running through my head for 2 weeks now. It doesn't get less true. The photos came back last week. They're gorgeous. The photographer captured everything perfectly. The way my husband looked at me during our vows, the way my mother covered her mouth during the first dance, the way the sunset painted everything gold during the outdoor cocktail hour. I've looked at them maybe twice. Every time I do, I see the gaps. The grandmother who wasn't there. The empty seats in the family section. The tight smile on my mother-in-law's face that wasn't quite happy, despite her best efforts. My husband tells me I'm being too hard on myself. He tells me that his sister made her own choices, that I'm not responsible for her spending or her behavior or the way her fiancé responded to it. He tells me that her breakdown wasn't caused by me keeping my wedding date. It was caused by her inability to let anyone else have something without trying to take it. She's always been this way, he says. When we were kids, if I got something she didn't have, she'd throw tantrums until our parents either took it away from me or got her something better. They usually got her something better. They trained her to believe the world would rearrange itself for her, and when it didn't, she couldn't handle it. I understand this intellectually. I know that I didn't make her rush. I didn't make her spend money she didn't have. I just refused to rearrange my life around her timeline. That's not the same as causing her pain. But it doesn't stop me from feeling responsible anyway. Update 5. The aftermath. It's been 3 weeks since the wedding. Here's where things stand. My sister-in-law hasn't spoken to me since that phone call. She's staying with her parents, spending most of her time in her childhood bedroom. From what I've heard through my husband, she's barely eating, barely sleeping, barely leaving the house. Her ex-fiancé has tried to reach out a few times, but she won't return his calls. My mother-in-law is trying to play peacemaker, which mostly means she's exhausted all the time and tiptoeing around everyone. She came to our housewarming dinner. We moved into our first house together last week, but spent half the night looking at her phone. I don't blame her. Her daughter is falling apart. How is she supposed to focus on anything else? My father-in-law is probably the most supportive. He pulled me aside after the wedding and said, "You didn't do anything wrong. She needs help, real help, professional help, and she needed it long before you came along. This isn't about you." It never was. I want to believe him. Some days I do. I've started seeing a therapist. Not because I think I'm crazy, but because I can't stop replaying everything in my head. Every decision, every conversation, every moment where I could have made a different choice. I keep asking myself, was the date worth it? We could have waited. We could have moved. But why should we have had to? My therapist says that question doesn't have an answer, or at least not the kind of answer I'm looking for. She says I'm trying to find a logical solution to an emotional problem, trying to find the right choice in a situation where every choice had costs. She asked me once, if you had moved your wedding and she'd still fallen apart, maybe over something else, maybe over the fact that you exist, maybe over her fiancé eventually seeing the same patterns, would you blame yourself for that too? I didn't have an answer. Her fiancé, ex-fiancé, called me last week. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me answer. I need you to know something, he said. What happened between me and her wasn't about the wedding date. Not really. The date was just a trigger. It exposed something that was already there. What do you mean? She's always needed to be first. Best. Most special. When we started dating, I thought it was charming, this confident woman who knew what she wanted. But underneath that, there was this fragility. This terror of not being enough. And when you got engaged first, when you wouldn't move your date, it was like you held up a mirror and she couldn't stand what she saw. I didn't know what to say to that. Her fiancé told her she'd become someone he didn't recognize. I wonder if she blames me for that too. I said it out loud, the thought that had been haunting me, and there was a long pause on the other end of the line. She blames everyone but herself, he said finally. That's the problem. That's what I couldn't live with. I'm not sure she's ever going to see her own role in this. We talked for another 20 minutes. He apologized for the position I'd been put in. I apologized for, I'm not sure what. The whole situation. The pain he was in. The pain she was in. The way everything had splintered. I had dinner with my husband's grandmother last night. She was the one who'd refused to come to the wedding, the one who'd sided firmly with my sister-in-law from the beginning. She called and asked to meet, and I said yes because I'm trying to rebuild bridges, even when I'm not sure I should have to. We sat in a quiet restaurant, and she told me about her own wedding 60 years ago. Her sister had wanted the same month, the same venue. Their mother had made them flip a coin. I won, she said. My sister never forgave me. We barely spoke for the last 40 years of her life. She died thinking I'd stolen something from her. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. She leaned forward. There was nothing you could have done. If you'd moved your wedding, she would have found something else. The flowers. The dress. The honeymoon. Some people need someone to blame, and once they pick you, you're never getting off that hook. Then why didn't you come to the wedding? She was quiet for a long moment. Because I know what it feels like to be the one who won. And I know what it feels like to watch your sister fall apart because you did. I thought maybe if I stayed away, it would help. It would show her that someone was on her side. That might help her heal. Did it? No. She stirred her coffee. Nothing helps except her deciding to help herself. I'm sorry I missed your wedding. I'm sorry I made you feel like you'd done something wrong. You didn't. You just existed, and that was enough to shatter someone who was already broken. Reflection. It's been a month now. I'm married to a wonderful man who loves me unconditionally, who stood by me through everything, who has never once wavered in his support. Our house is coming together slowly. We've painted the bedroom, set up the kitchen, started making it feel like home. We're planning our first holiday season as a married couple, making lists of traditions we want to start. And yet, there's a shadow over everything. A weight I can't shake. My husband says I did nothing wrong. Most days I believe him. Some days I'm not sure. My sister-in-law has started therapy. That's what I heard last week, at least. She's working with someone who specializes in, I'm not sure exactly, anxiety, identity issues, whatever it is that made her feel like she needed to be first at everything or she didn't exist at all. I hope it helps her. I really do. Despite everything she said to me, despite the months of hostility and the way she tried to turn the family against me, I don't want her to suffer. I never wanted any of this. Her ex-fiancé is moving to another city. He told me that in our last phone call, said he needs a fresh start, somewhere without all the memories. I understand that. I wish I could do the same sometimes. Last night, I looked at the wedding photos again. Really looked, for the first time. And mixed in with all the complicated feelings, the guilt, the sadness, the sense that I'm standing on a foundation that's never quite stopped shaking, there was something else. Joy. Because my husband is looking at me in those photos like I'm the only person in the world. Because my father is crying in the one where he gives me away. Because my friends are laughing in the candid shots, and the sunset really was that beautiful, and we promised each other forever under a sky painted gold and pink. It happened. Despite everything, it happened. And it was mine. I don't know how to end this. There's no neat conclusion, no moment where everything resolves and everyone moves on. My sister-in-law is still not speaking to me. Some family members are still cold. The holidays are going to be complicated, possibly for years. I got what I wanted. I kept my date. I had my wedding. I married the love of my life exactly when and where we'd planned. But the cost was higher than I expected. Not because I was wrong, I don't think I was wrong, but because being right doesn't protect you from grief. Doesn't stop you from lying awake wondering if there was a path where everyone ended up okay. Doesn't stop you from looking at your wedding photos and feeling proud and sad at the same time. I didn't make her rush. I didn't make her spend money she didn't have. I just refused to rearrange my life around her timeline. That's true. It doesn't make any of this easier. Final note. If you're in a similar situation, if someone is demanding you rearrange your life for their convenience and you're wondering whether you're selfish for refusing, I can tell you this. Stand your ground. Make the choices that are right for your life. You can't control how other people react, and you can't save someone from themselves by sacrificing your own happiness. But also, be prepared for it to hurt. Be prepared for the victory to feel hollow sometimes. Be prepared to question yourself even when you know you're right. And maybe most importantly, find people who will tell you the truth. A partner who stands by you. A therapist who helps you untangle the guilt from the reality. Friends who remind you that you're allowed to exist, to thrive, to have good things without apologizing for them. I'm still working on believing I deserve this happiness without conditions. I'm still learning to look at my wedding photos and just feel joy, without the shadow of everything that fell apart around them. But I'm getting there. One day at a time. Edit. Thank you all for the responses. I didn't expect this to get so much attention. To answer a few common questions. Yes, my husband has read this and supports me posting it. No, I'm not planning to reach out to my sister-in-law directly. My therapist thinks that's something that should come from her when and if she's ready. And yes, I'm okay. Complicated, but okay. Some of you have been through similar situations and shared your stories, and that's meant more than I can say. Knowing I'm not alone in this, that other people have stood their ground and felt guilty about it even when they were right, helps more than I expected. To those asking if I regret anything, I regret that it happened this way. I don't regret my choices. Those are different things. Thanks for listening. Blue Heart. Here's what I learned from keeping my wedding date. Being right doesn't protect you from grief. I didn't make her rush. I didn't make her spend money she didn't have. I didn't make her turn every conversation into a competition, every choice into a battle, every moment into a chance to prove she was better than me. I just refused to rearrange my life around her timeline. That's not the same as causing her pain. I know that intellectually. But knowing something and feeling it are different things. Her ex-fiancé told me the wedding date wasn't really the issue. It was a trigger that exposed something already there. When you got engaged first, when you wouldn't move your date, it was like you held up a mirror and she couldn't stand what she saw. She'd always needed to be first. Best. Most special. When she couldn't be, something broke. Not because of me, because the fragility was always there, waiting for something to shatter it. My husband's grandmother told me something that haunts me. She won a coin flip for her wedding date 60 years ago. Her sister never forgave her. They barely spoke for 40 years. Her sister died still believing something had been stolen from her. There was nothing you could have done, she said. If you'd moved your wedding, she would have found something else. Some people need someone to blame, and once they pick you, you're never getting off that hook. I want to believe that. Some days I do. My wedding was beautiful. It was everything I dreamed of. And I spent half of it wondering if I destroyed my future family. The photos came back gorgeous. My husband looking at me during our vows. My father crying as he gave me away. The sunset painting everything gold. But when I look at them, I see the gaps too. The grandmother who wasn't there. The empty seats in the family section. The tight smile on my mother-in-law's face. I keep asking myself, was the date worth it? We could have waited. We could have moved. But why should we have had to? My therapist says that question doesn't have an answer. She asked me, if you had moved your wedding and she'd still fallen apart, maybe over something else, maybe over the fact that you exist, would you blame yourself for that too? I didn't have an answer. My husband says I did nothing wrong. Most days I believe him. Some days I'm not sure. She's in therapy now. Working on whatever made her feel like she needed to be first at everything or she didn't exist at all. I hope it helps her. Despite everything she said, despite the months of hostility, I don't want her to suffer. I never wanted any of this. Stand your ground. Make the choices that are right for your life. You can't save someone from themselves by sacrificing your own happiness. But be prepared for it to hurt. Be prepared for the victory to feel hollow sometimes. Be prepared to question yourself even when you know you're right. I got what I wanted. I kept my date. I married the love of my life exactly when and where we'd planned. The cost was higher than I expected. Not because I was wrong, but because being right doesn't stop you from lying awake wondering if there was a path where everyone ended up okay. I regret that it happened this way. I don't regret my choices. Those are different things.